Hey guys, Chii here. And today's build is inspired off of a series that I read when I was kind of either 8 or 9. I know when the first movie came out, I was roughly 9, I think. And that series is called the Twilight Saga. And, as bad as this may sound, it's actually one of the first book series that was like intended for young adults for my 9-year-old brain to comprehend, for me to actually get into reading as much as I love it, which is kind of odd because normally it's like, oh, Junie B. Jones in that series, and that series is one of the ones that got me into reading as well, but the Twilight Saga was the one that got me into reading, or wanting to read, more young adult series books, because I've always been able to like read. For when I was younger, I could always read like a grade or two above my designated reading level in elementary school or whatever. And by the time I was like in 5th or 6th grade, I could read up to a 12th grade reading level. And so, I didn't really care for those books that they were trying to get us to read when we were in 5th grade, and it was like the Magic Tree House, and stuff like that. Like, I did like those, but I just felt like they weren't challenging enough for me to read. And so my sister had borrowed a copy of Twilight from one of her friends and was reading it, and then she stopped reading it and she was going to give it back to him, and I was like, well, I want to read it. And she's like, oh, you can't read that. And then I was like, yes, I can, because the whole reason why she said I can't read is because she thought that I wouldn't be able to understand what was happening in the story. And I mean, I can understand why she thought that, because I was in 5th grade and Mom was like, well, she does good on her, whenever she meets with her reading coach or whatever they do, she does good with them because she can read fast and da-da-da-da-da, because my school had reading coaches to help us read faster and comprehend information faster than, like to help us get better, and we also had AR and stuff like that. And, so Megan eventually messaged her friend and was like, okay, hey, let me just borrow this for a little bit longer because my sister wants to read it, and I'll give it to you whenever she's finished with it. And so my friend agreed, and then I was reading it and I liked it, and I finished it within a couple of weeks, because when I first read it, I wasn't too sure about the plot, because I was just kind of like, I'm not sure what's happening, like it doesn't make sense in my mind or whatever. And so I eventually like got through with reading it, and then I was like, okay, well, I kind of like it or whatever, and my sister loved it too, so that gave us something to talk about, because we're 8 years apart in our age, and so we would always fight like cats and dogs over everything. And so Mom was kind of happy that we had something to like talk about and not try to kill each other over. But so this is Bella's house that I'm building, if you can't tell. And I built the ones from the movies, but the house in the movies changed so often that, because I remember in the first one, Bella didn't have that little bay window in her room. And then I actually looked at pictures of the house where it was filmed at, and the bay window is actually in the living room, and I was like, oh, well, I'll just put it in the living room and I won't bother putting one in her room or anything like that. And then so that happened, and then like I got the outside of the house to kind of look like the outside of the real house. Not a whole lot, because I was kind of confused about like what trim to put on the foundation of it or whatever. But I'm proud of how the outside looks. It's the inside that I'm kind of worried about. So I was struggling with the inside a little bit. And also I recorded me building this on Tuesday, I think, but I haven't been able to record me voicing over it since then because I got sick. I've actually went to the doctor last night at like 7 o'clock at night, and I found out that I might be dehydrated. So tip from Chii, drink water and stay hydrated. And yeah, because if you don't, then you'll feel like crap and you'll be tired all the time. Anyways, but for the most part, I liked how the outside of the house turned out. And then the inside, I wasn't really sure what to do because I was struggling with it a lot. And then, for the kitchen, like, I know the kitchen in the house is different from the one in the books. But in the books, it talks about how Renee painted the cabinets, yellow to try to bring the sunshine in because, you know, Forks is a dreary place to live in because there's always like an overcast and there's always rain and cold and snow. And so that's what I tried to do for it. And then I actually think I used the same wooden flooring all throughout the house except for in the kitchen and the bathroom for the first floor because I think I put tile in there. And then I went through wallpaper a lot and like paints or whatever when I was building this. And then I had a problem with a bay window, as you can tell, because I was like, what the heck happened here? I don't understand. And I was getting frustrated with it because I was like, well, I don't want to like remove the walls and the walls get messed up. And I eventually just accepted it and dealt with it. Or did I? No, I didn't. I remember I just added foundation because I was like, I'm not getting rid of those walls because it's tedious. And then the dining room, like, the house is already such a weird shape. And I know that they didn't really have a dining room, but then there was one movie where it looked like they had changed houses again, at least on the inside, and they had a dining room because Harry Clearwater's wife, I think her name is Sue, you know, she starts seeing Charlie, and it looks like they have a dining table in Charlie's house. And so I was like, oh, okay, so they do have a dining table, or a dining room or whatever. It's just like off to the side, and they might just have like a breakfast table that's in the kitchen. But I gave them like another island for whatever reason. I think I made the island yellow too. So I made everything yellow in the kitchen. Like, it's so yellow, I hated it. Because I was like, well, you know, yellow Renee, and, you know, Charlie, he didn't really change anything after Renee left because, you know, he was still in love with her. And, I feel so bad for Charlie. Like, I really do. Like, he's such a good guy. And, like, the only reason why Renee didn't like staying with him is because he was in Forks. That's the only reason why. And then, like, she had Bella when she was young, too. And, like, I think she had Bella when she was like 20 something, like early 20s. Maybe she just like turned 20 or 21 and she had Bella. I'm not sure. But that's just one whole thing that I found so funny about like the entire series is that like Bella is literally Renee when you think about it. And I know, like, you know, she's not as quirky as Renee because, you know, Renee is so full of life and bubbly and ditzy and stuff like that. But Bella is literally her mother because her mother makes a lot of, like, impulse choices. And Bella does the same thing like she did with Edward. And she likes to think that she thought about him for a long time and she didn't. And, it's just something that I've always was like, Bella says she's not like her mother, but in a way she is because she does make impulse choices like her mother did. And so, that's just one thing that I thought that they've always had in common. And another thing that they had in common was that, you know, they both love the sun and they both love the heat and stuff like that. Also, this is, like, definitely one of the longest, one of the longest houses that took me forever to build. Because I was, like, building it and then I was decorating it and then I hated how it looked and then I was, like, trying to redo it and stuff like that. And I don't know. And then, like, all the pictures on that wall behind the couch, I imagine that was, like, pictures of just, like, Charlie and Billy and Bella and, like, some of their other, like, distant family. And then I imagine, like, those cards are, like, birthday cards that, Charlie has received from Bella when Bella was younger, and that the pictures over the fireplace are pictures of Bella when she was younger, like, up until, you know, she was 13 or whatever. And, I just put, like, a little bit of everything all over because I was like, well, I don't know, because there's, like, a little walk-in area of where they come in and, you know, Edward is, like, greeting Charlie and Charlie was pissed at Edward because it was after they had went to Phoenix, and Bella had gotten injured, and Charlie blamed Edward, which he had every right to. I mean, don't get me wrong, I do like the series, but I feel like it does have a lot of plot holes in it, just because, like, you get to learn about some characters' backstories, and then other ones you don't, and I understand that, like, for some characters you don't need to understand their backstories, like, they're just there now, or whatever, but, like, with Alice and Jasper, Alice doesn't know who she is, and so I think Stephenie Meyer released a whole other, like, book about her backstory and, like, other characters' backstories that went into, like, a little bit more depth, because, like, at the end of Breaking Dawn, you literally don't know why Marcus is so depressed until, like, you look in the back of the book and it explains what happened to the mates that had died. And Arrow had killed Marcus's mate because Arrow was like, LOL, you're not leaving, you're staying here with me forever. So that's the whole reason that he's so depressed, because, he misses his mate, like, he loves her so much. And then, like, they were planning on leaving or something, because I remember, I think I looked it up, because I was like, well, why did Arrow kill her or whatever? And because normally he has to have a quote unquote good reason to kill someone, and I think it was because they were wanting to leave, or she was wanting to leave, and she had managed to convince Marcus to leave with her, and they were planning to leave because in Marcus's eyes, like, she was the only thing that he had left other than Arrow and Caius. And when Arrow had killed her, Marcus stayed with them because, again, in his eyes, they were literally the only thing that he had left that tied him back, I guess, to his, like, mortal life or whatever. And so that's why he's depressed, because his loved one was murdered by Arrow. And then Caius, I'm not too sure about Caius's backstory. That's another character that I would love to know about. I'm assuming that he has had some run-in with the actual, like, werewolves, like the ones that turn on the full moon or whatever, and not the shapeshifters like Jacob and his tribe is or whatever, because he freaked out when he saw them, and he called them, oh god, what did he call them? I think he called them moon children of the moon. I don't know, kind of sounds like children of the corn. But yeah, so that's what I think. He actually had, like, a really bad run-in with real werewolves, and so I don't know his backstory. I'll probably look it up here in a little bit. So I went off on a whole other, like, rant or whatever with Alice and her backstory. I actually figured out why she doesn't know who she is, because Stephenie Meyer, she released, like, a book or short stories about some characters' backgrounds or whatever, and I don't know what the book is called, but there is a short clip on YouTube somewhere, and it's called Alice Marie Colon, and it's so good. Like, I thought it was actually something real, but it doesn't have Ashley Greene in it. It's like a short fan-made film, and it's really, really good, and I would totally suggest checking it out. Like, I'll put the link in the description, because, like, it makes me, like, I already loved Alice a lot, but it just makes me feel so bad for her, just because of, like, what she went through and what happened to her. Because I don't know if it's mentioned in the books or the movies, but it gets mentioned that while she was human, she was having visions that were so strong that people thought she was crazy, and it resulted in her getting admitted into a mental asylum. And what happened was her mother was murdered by her father, or her father had put a hit out on her mother, and she died, and Alice had a vision about it, and when she tried to tell her father that her mother was murdered, that it wasn't an accident, that it wasn't just like an automobile accident, he was like, oh, you don't know what you're talking about, because her father thought that she was crazy, or he acted like he thought that she was crazy, but he knew that she could see the future, but she couldn't prove it. But or he thought she couldn't prove it until she had seen the face of him and the other guy, and that was when she was just like trying to get someone to arrest him, and that was when she got him into the mental asylum. And so yeah, her story is really depressing, but it goes into a lot more detail than that, because it's just really, really difficult to explain all of like the characters, because like the people that were casted for that mini film, it was so good. Like, I loved it so much. And if they were like released anything else like about any of the other ones, I would probably watch it. And so here I am doing Charlie's room, and I was trying to find like a bottle that resembled a beer bottle, because like he's not an alcoholic, but you know, he's seen drinking a lot of alcohol with like Billy and stuff like that. And so I just imagine him to like have like an empty beer bottle or a full one by his bed that he drinks whenever he's about to go to bed. And then for his decorations on his walls, I imagine that like he could be in like some fishing club, and that like little banner with the chess piece is from when he was like in school and he was like maybe in a fraternity, and it had something to do with like crap, not criminal justice, just like something to do with like law or whatever. Oh, and then also his study, I imagine him to like have his own, like, even though it's not mentioned in the books or in the movies, I needed to create another room for the house to make it look right for the outside of it at least. And I was like, well, why don't I give Charlie an extra space for him to be him? And I just created him a little study there, and I was like, well, this can be his like work office whenever he's at home, and it's where he works on cases that like really, really bother him, like, you know, the Riley Baker case. I imagine he could come home and like start working on that when he's there, trying to figure out where that kid is, because, you know, Charlie is actually a good parent, and I'm not trying to say that Renee isn't, but Charlie was a good parent because he actually cared about Bella, and like it was obvious that he cared about her and that he wanted to protect her and stuff, because, you know, he gave her the mace when, what was it, the first movie where he gave her mace, because, you know, those animal attacks were happening or whatever. Also, for some reason, after I put the counters in on the kitchen, I just didn't come back and touch it for whatever reason. I literally saved it for last. I don't know why. But that was a thing. And I actually put in a trash can, and I put in the porch lights. I put in a trash can outside, and I put in a trash can in the kitchen during the actual build, and I'm so proud of myself that I didn't forget it while I was recording. And also I need to like use the hidden objects or whatever like last minute, because it's just, but anyways, that's it. I'll see you guys in the next video if I upload anytime again, and I hope you guys have a good day. Bye.